I constantly keep hearing about this term, systemic racism. There's a system that teaches racism? There is. It's called the public school system, teaching the story of evolution as fact and science.
Darwin's theory of evolution and survival of the fittest is really extermination of the weakest. Darwin and the Nazis were eugenists who believed we should exterminate, in their terms, the weaker races. I'm sure you can guess who they thought the weaker races were.
When the Human Genome Project was finishing up in 2000, here was a conclusion from the study where it said scientists at the National Institutes of Health recently announced they put together a draft of the entire sequence of the human genome, and the researchers had unanimously declared there's only one race, the human race.
Science has proven that there's only one race, but yet the public school systems keep teaching racism through the theory of evolution. DNA doesn't lie, but people do.
Now, people will say, yeah, but Cal, I can see different races, right?
That's because the public school system has been teaching the idea that our skin color matters more than our character. This is the opposite of what the civil rights movement was about and what Martin Luther King Jr. died for.
I want you to imagine, you see these two gals walking down the street and they're chatting with each other. Most people would look at them and say, oh yeah, they're two different races. They're actually twin sisters. Same mom, same dad. How could they possibly be two different races if they have the same mom and the same dad? Folks, we're all just variations of the same color. There's not different colors, there's just more or less of the same stuff. We're all one race, one blood. The concept of racism is completely non-biblical, and it has no basis in reality. Now, it is true that we see these specific people groups all around the world. Scientists know that if you take any large group of freely interbreeding creatures and you separate them somehow, and geographically or through different means, you start getting specific physical traits in that group because they can't interbreed and get more of the variation.
This is what we saw before the discovery of America. After that, the melting pot that is America began. And now we see the intermingling of colors and characteristics. So our differences that were created by the separation of oceans are no longer barriers to unite us. Those barriers are now promoted by evolution and its core belief that some people are less than other people because of their skin color.
Not different races, same race, one race, the human race, with variation. Have you guys ever watched European soccer and the cameras are panning the crowds and one of the dark-skinned players runs out onto the field and sometimes the cameras go up and you see some of the white fans and they're going, ooh, 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 ooh. That's pretty racist, isn't it? Yeah. Why is it racist to make monkey noises towards somebody with darker skin? Where did that concept come from? Right there, where dark-skinned, hairy apes turn into Caucasian. Black people turn into white people. And the further down the rung you are, the less evolved you are. That is racist to the core. And almost every child in the West has seen that diagram promoted.
This subtle underlying message has been pushed without most people realizing they're being played.
Even giants in the evolutionary community like Stephen Jay Gould openly admitted it. He said biological arguments for racism may have been common before 1859, but they increased by orders of magnitude following the acceptance of evolutionary theory. As an atheist and an evolutionist, he admitted that. When he mentions that date, 1859, he's talking about when Darwin published Origin of Species. He talked about the law of natural selection, survival of the fittest.
So before the theory of evolution, racism wasn't as prevalent because we weren't teaching that dark skin equals less evolved. That comes from the community of atheism and evolution.
And then he wrote another book called The Descent of Man. Now look what he wrote in that book talking about human evolution, supposedly. He said at some future period, not very distant as measured by centuries, the civilized races of man will almost certainly exterminate and replace the savage races.
This is where we get Planned Parenthood. The founder of Planned Parenthood, Margaret Sanger, was a Nazi eugenist who believed in controlling the birth of blacks. She didn't support abortion. She supported the controlled birth of minorities.
And he started to rank races along an evolutionary scale. And this started, in a sense, to get codified in science. Matter of fact, the same year he published The Descent of Man, Thomas Huxley, he was known as Darwin's bulldog. He championed Darwinism as an atheist. He said no rational man cognizant of the facts believes that the average Negro is the equal, still less the superior of the white man. Huxley described whites as bigger-brained and smaller-jawed, racist to the core.
Here's Darwin's right-hand man telling the truth about Darwin's theory of evolution and survival of the fittest. Or should I say, extermination of the weakest.
This is Oda Benda. This is a man who was put in a zoo in America here as a missing link. Again, you can look up the research.
Talk about smoking gun. What more evidence do you need? Why would that have happened if some people didn't think he was less evolved?
All weak living things will perish in nature. In the last few decades, mankind has sinned frightfully against the law of natural selection. We haven't just maintained life unworthy of life, we've even allowed it to multiply.
So Nazi eugenists not only believed in ridding the world of lesser races that they believed, but they went further to say it was their responsibility to wipe out what they believed were the lesser races.
This is a gospel issue. Christians should be at the forefront of the anti-racist movement, biblical creationists, especially because we don't believe there are separate races. There's only one race, the human race.
But unfortunately, most Christians have no clue that science is actually on their side. And as we continue to teach evolution to our children, then we will also continue to teach racism. At some point, science stopped teaching what was provable and started teaching its faith in evolution. Before you go, hit that like and subscribe button. Make sure you comment and share. Follow us on Telegram, on Rumble, and on X. Thanks for watching.